about rape. I never thought that I would be back here, or that in 2012, if I were still alive, that I would turn on the national TV and hear, in connection with a presidential primary, somebody say that the best form of birth control was to hold an aspirin between your knees. I didn't think I'd hear people say that women with children, small children, shouldn't work, because unlike a lot of people, most of us have to work. I never knew that 2012 would bring the mainstreaming of anti-American, anti-woman extremism. I didn't know we'd be having a debate about the morality of women who use birth control, or that we'd be having debates over whether employers could fire women who use it. Now, I heard on national TV that someone said this war against women is conjured up. It's just to distract us from the issues that really matter. Well, before I get to the issue of South Carolina, which along with a lot of other states seems to believe that life begins at conception and ends at birth, I want to tell you about the issues that are out there. And I'll come back to South Carolina. We've got legislation right now to force state employees and their children who are victims of rape to give birth. Arizona introduced a law that would require women who wanted birth control to file an application. If they wanted it covered by insurance, they have to file an application with the employer and prove with their medical records that it is for the purposes of some physical condition they have and not to avoid conception. Our neighbor, Georgia, a representative or a senator named Bobby Franks, he's introduced two bills. One, redefine rape, domestic violence, and stalking victims as accusers, while leaving victims of robbery as victims. The worst, he introduced legislation to require the police to investigate every miscarriage as a potential homicide.
Are you kidding?
And that is Georgia. Fortunately, that failed. South Dakota and Nebraska have introduced legislation to make it legal to kill abortion providers. They call it justifiable homicide if the killing is intended to prevent harm to a fetus. Wisconsin just rescinded the Equal Pay Act, saying that it clogged up the courts. And the Florida governor vetoed funds to fund the Rape Crisis Center. So if that isn't a war against women, help me out here. I don't know what is. So for those of you wondering about the issues we care about, those are some of them. Now, we finally get in South Carolina a governor who's a woman. And she goes on national TV and says that women don't care about birth control in a state where 58% of pregnancies are unplanned. In a state where 3 out of 10 women are pregnant for the first time before they're 20 years old. She thinks we don't care about this. She thinks that we should be governed by what our male legislature says. That birth control doesn't matter. Well, you know, it matters to us how rape victims, who are our daughters, our children, our cousins, our mothers, our grandmothers, our friends, are treated, and ourselves. And it matters to us that we have access to birth control. And I'll tell you one thing that matters a lot to us. We've got a legislature that every single year for the past 10 years, every single year, has introduced legislation which would outlaw birth control. every year. There's one pending now. They already mandate unnecessary procedures for women. And in 2012, some of our legislators, including from the upstate, have introduced legislation that would have the state heap further victimization on women who've already had to suffer the indignity and crime of rape. This isn't about abortion, which is a subject on which right-thinking people can disagree. This is about whether or not the government is going to decide if our 10-year-old daughter is raped, and we've got 100 young women between 10 and 14 every year who are pregnant. And I can tell you right now, that's mostly a crime.
Yes, it is.
This is about whether we want this government to tell us whether a 10-year-old rape or incest victim has to have a baby. Now you talk about government intrusion that they say they don't want. I don't think it gets any worse than that. Our all-male Senate, not one of them has given birth. Not one of them has been raped and forced to have the baby. And they've got a bill pending to eliminate state insurance payments for abortions in every circumstance. And they specifically take out the exception for rape or incest. And soon they are going to file another one to expand that prohibition to private insurers. So what they want is for people all over the state of South Carolina not to be able to afford primary health care or coverage of abortions in all circumstances. These people think that we hadn't suffered enough. Now, I know we live in a red state, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you listen to what these laws say, and you read them, and you don't look at the little titles they give them, then the majority of the people in our state do not want any one of the people in this legislature deciding how they're going to deal with their relatives who are rape victims and whether or not they're going to force them to have a baby. They do not want it. I don't care how red they are. Our bills right now will outlaw birth control pills, IUDs, and the use of fertility treatment. And we can't be complacent. And that's what happened to us 42 years ago. I've got 2 children, one's 25, one's 27. In my lifetime, I never thought they'd be fighting this battle. I never thought we would see this kind of anti-woman extremism. We fought it and got rid of it before. We've got to do it again and again and again, and our children are going to have to do it. And if they take away our rights, we have got to take away their jobs.